wake up Sunday, go to the Browns backers bar, watch the Browns win a game, even though I didn't really care what happened. And then we head to Fenway nice and early on Sunday, September 15th. We had really great seats that night. They were not the 10 Club seats. We paid a little bit more for those seats. But we were down on the field, and I picked the section right in front of the soundboard. And I would say that I made a very good decision. The sound was incredible. We were able to see the visuals really well. It was hard to see the band like in person that well. They were a little bit small, but the video element, I mean, whenever you go to a big festival or a big stadium show, like a baseball stadium show, you're relying on the video feeds. And it's a little bit weird to watch the band that's performing on stage kind of on TV, live in the venue. But I'm telling you, it worked. It was great. But let's talk about the set list, Andrew, because night one in Fenway, they opened with Footsteps, Release, Given to Fly, Hail Hail, Corduroy, and then launched into the Dark Matter stuff. But those first five, I was out of my mind. I will let you in, but I just have to say, those first five, I was already out of my mind.
So I want to dive deeper into that opening five, but I do want to talk a little bit more before you get there about the venue itself. So I asked you a few questions already, but I really have been reserving this for the podcast. So we have a tendency of talking too much in DMs and blowing our load on some of these conversations through DMs. So I purposefully didn't ask you anything about the venue itself. So I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about what it was like being in a baseball stadium for a tour, because I've never seen a show in a baseball stadium before. And I'm curious to know, I know you had great seats, but did you get a feel just in general how it feels? Does the sound feel different than like a well, not an auditorium, but a outdoor amphitheater type venue, and just the sights and sounds and just how that felt being in a baseball stadium for a show?
Yeah. So first of all, it was very strange to be in Fenway for a rock concert, just in terms of, all the infrastructure is set up for baseball, and you're walking around and you're seeing Red Sox history and you're seeing Red Sox this and Red Sox that. They can put up as many tour posters and signs as they want. And they do this summer concert series every year at Fenway. And I think actually Post Malone was playing a couple days after Pearl Jam as well. So they were going to keep it going. It's not something that they're unfamiliar with doing in Boston, specifically at Fenway every single year. The sound was shockingly good. They had that stage set up in the middle of center field. The stage fit perfectly. The only part of the field that was not used for seats was the actual infield with the base paths and the pitcher's mound. And so, yeah, it sounded and looked just incredible. It was really great. They've fixed stadium lighting technology so that they can bring the lights up and bring them back down. Back in the old days, those of us of our age know that it used to take 5 or 10 minutes for those lights to warm up and get going, but now they're just on and off and on and off. And it was just phenomenal. I was surprised how much I enjoyed seeing a show in a venue that size, because I have seen a couple of shows in Cleveland Brown Stadium, which is a football stadium, and it's not great. It's not, it's less than great. It's pretty poor, actually.
That's why I was curious, because you don't see a baseball stadium as being like a natural place for a concert. It's not designed to contain the audio, and the way sort of an amphitheater is designed to disperse the audio out to the lawn. It's different, but so I was curious how well that would work, and I mean I figured it probably worked pretty well because they've done Wrigley in the past. This isn't new for Pearl Jam necessarily, but I was just kind of curious because I don't know anybody that has been to a baseball show before.
But the really amazing thing is I used to go to Fenway back in the 90s when I went to Boston University for baseball games before all the upgrades and before they built up kind of the, a park like that, you're not going to change a lot of the interior or the actual park dimensions, but you're kind of going to build not a face, you're going to build the infrastructure around it, around the outside. And when I'm telling, things as simple as some of the most efficient restrooms I've ever been in my entire life. You got to figure a Pearl Jam show is like 80% dudes, 80% 40 and 50 something year old dudes.
Yeah.
And I never had to wait more than a couple minutes to get to pee, which is like, giant stadium shows. That's a real issue when everybody's drinking way too much beer, which, also takes place at Pearl Jam shows.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the actual venue, it worked really well to a shocking degree. That's not to say that it's my favorite way to see a show, and I wouldn't rush out to see just any band. Yeah. I certainly wouldn't go see, I guess the Cleveland version this year was Def Leppard, Journey, and Heart. I'm certainly not going to see that. For venue and artistic reasons. But no, this was awesome.
Oh, cool. So, all right. So let's talk about this opening five a little bit. Footsteps is not a traditional opener. And it's certainly cool. So they've been doing this a lot on this tour where they would sort of start with like maybe two slower songs to kind of ease you into the night. And then you sort of hit this like 3 through 5, 6 section of sort of your hits or favorites or whatever, and then they would kind of merge their way into the dark matter meat of the set list. But I think what's interesting is getting Release as the second song, because I think when you hear Footsteps as the opener, you are not expecting Release then to be the second song after that. So I'm curious to know just how that felt when all of a sudden you get through Footsteps and then they start playing the opening to Release, how that felt and how surprising that was.
Oh, it was an absolute shock. The pop when the noodling guitar part of Release comes after the end of Footsteps, the place was just insane. And I wondered, I've had this thought that I was going to talk about this, and I wondered when I was going to bring this up, but I think now is the time. My big realization from these two shows, and especially when talking about a song like Release, is that Pearl Jam songs have lost all of their original meaning. When I first heard Release as a 12 or 13-year-old, and all the angst of Alive and Even Flow and Jeremy and all that stuff, those songs did something for me that I can't go back in time and explain. But I didn't have any of those feelings. Every single Pearl Jam song puts a smile on your face now. It's every single song is nothing but celebration that the band is still playing them, that we're all still able to be there and hear them. But it's if you think about it too hard, it's a little bit disconcerting to just be smiling through Release and screaming every word and singing along. And I think it's a really weird thing, but I love it.
I think it's in the Pearl Jam 20 documentary that towards the end, I think Ed even talks about like Alive and how that sort of has really changed its meaning to him over the years, that this like really difficult song about a traumatic experience in his youth has become this like celebration of the band still being here. We're all still alive, and the fans, fist pumping with it. It's just the ultimate like arena anthem celebrating life now, which is very much not what the song is about, and like you lose that sarcasm, the I'm still alive, and like the hard hitting sarcasm of that line. Like, is something wrong? She said, of course there is. I'm still alive. It like, just thinking about that expression and how that's changed. And like, it's always been the case that like, to me, Release has always felt emotionally as a very interesting opening song. Like, it makes so much sense as the closing song on release. It deals with him crying out to his father who's passed away. He never knew his father. And I mean, I get emotional just talking about what that song actually means. And so, like, it's an interesting thing to have this expression at the front of a set list to like start the night off. But there is something uplifting about that. I've seen it live as well. For me, it was the opener. And like, just starting a show that way just sets you in such like a harmonic state of mind with the band, the environment. It's such a great opening song, and it has lost a little bit of that original meaning, at least I think to me it has. But
oh, for sure.
But yeah, that's awesome.
So then they follow that up with Given to Fly, Hail, Hail, and Corduroy, and just blew the, if the place had a roof, it would have been blown off. It was just all killer, no filler. And that's like a murderer's row in the middle of a set list.
These are like probably maybe, like, setting aside like Alive, Black, Daughter, like the hits, but like the quintessential like Pearl Jam sound. Like, if you were to ask me like 3 songs that sort of sum up the Pearl Jam sound, it might be these 3 songs: Given to Fly, Hail, Hail, and Corduroy. They all, in different ways, showcase what this band is great at. And to get those back to back to back, I mean, like you said, it's just truly a murderer's row of just quintessential Pearl Jam, quintessential live Pearl Jam. Like, Given to Fly is one of the best songs they do live. Corduroy is one of my favorite songs they do live, and Hail Hail is just an all around live studio album, whatever, one of my favorite Pearl Jam songs.
And then, they get into the dark matter, Scare to Fear, React, Respond, which, you weren't kidding about the visuals. The program visuals that they've put out for this new record are just unbelievable. If you're going to play a large format venue like Fenway Park, you better bring the goods with the stage show. And this is something that you and I have talked about has not been a major part of Pearl Jam shows, where sometimes they would go without the backdrop altogether in a lot of cases, because in basketball arenas, they'd have fans sitting behind them and they'd play to the back of the room as well as the front of the room. But now with this, it's a new element, and it's very welcomed, if you ask me.
So was I correct in my prediction that you would actually love React Respond live versus how you feel about it on album? Because Ed's vocal delivery is entirely different live.
Yeah,
of that.
when he's doing it live, he can't do any of the kind of stylistically stilted things that he does on the record. And the song just crushes. It just absolutely crushes. The audience loves it. The way he's moving back and forth with the different sections, and he's pointing this way and that way. He certainly isn't the same guy who hung from the rafters and was stage diving off of the opera box in a theater, but you can tell that it's the same guy, just older.
And React Respond is also a great Jeff Ament song too.
It is
one of the ones. Did he have the neon bass for it? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
But yeah. And so then they went into Down, In My Tree, and Wreckage. I thought Wreckage played really well. The audience was way into it at my show.
Oh, interesting. That's polar opposite from mine. Yeah.
It might just be a Boston thing. I hate the only in New York, things are a little bit different in Boston, or like these too precious type of sentiments about certain cities. But Boston is a particular town with a particular type of person. It doesn't surprise me that they might have a different sort of vibe with certain songs than other cities. Just something in the water that, whatever. I hate to give it too much mystique, but I'm telling you, that song absolutely killed live because people were waiting for it. You could tell that they had listened to it a bunch, and they were excited to hear it. There was a pop in the audience when the opening notes came out. And so, yeah, it worked really well. And then, but you didn't even have a chance to react to it because they went straight into Even Flow. Another one that, they can occasionally save that for later. They know that is probably their most played song live.
It is
next to Alive.
It is their most. It
most
tops
played
Alive. Their most played live songs even flow.
And again, one of those songs that lost all its meaning. It's just celebration, but man, is it a celebration!
Yeah.
And then into Dark Matter, you were 100% right about Do the Evolution. So you had some additional information from your drummer friend about what maybe is making Do the Evolution better live today than it used to be. So I'm going to give you the floor here for a minute.
Yeah, so they dramatically slowed the pace down of that song. And let me see how I'm going to fill time here while quickly trying to reference a text message my buddy sent me.
I'm pretty sure I remember the actual beats per minute. I think was like the.
Oh, I've got it.
You can correct me, but let's test my memory. I think the studio version is somewhere around 150, and they're playing it at like 138 beats per minute.
I actually don't know what the studio is, but he referenced Cleveland in 2006. He went back and listened. It was at 161 beats per minute. On the 2024 tour, they've been playing it on average at 138 beats per minute. I mean, that is a significant slowdown in that song, and it makes that song just really sort of just take on a life of its own. It takes
the chaos out and it gives it more meat.
Yeah, meat. That's a great way to put it. It hits harder. It's heavier. My buddy also mentioned that Matt even has mixed up his drum part on it a little bit. He's sort of, when you're playing it that fast, it gets a little bit harder to be creative with, some of the fills you're doing. And I think as they've slowed it down, he's made that drum part a little bit more intricate as well. And that combined with the visuals that they have for that song, which is cut up pieces of the Do the Evolution video, that song hits so hard live, and it's one of my absolute favorite songs that they do live now. To me, it's become an absolute staple of their live show.
So after that, a little bit of dark humor from Eddie. They played Glorified G, and then he said, and then afterwards he said, "All right, here's another gun song," and they went into Jeremy, which was like, ooh, ouch.
Didn't he mention something about Ted Nugent as well? Because there was
a
little
brief,
bit of
it was more brief than the last time he mentioned Ted Nugent.
There was some kind of a back and forth, I guess, through the media or whatever between Ed and Ted Nugent. But like Glorified G being the ultimate like tongue-in-cheek anti-gun song. The Pearl Jam lore of this song is that it's basically making fun of Dave Abruzzesi's, I never know if I pronounced that right, but the Pearl Jam drummer at the time, Dave A, as we always called him, was bragging about a gun he had bought or something, like totally oblivious to the fact, I guess, of Ed's anti-gun stance, and he turned it into a song. I don't know if it was directly making fun of Dave, but probably is. But it's like become like this really like sort of funny tongue-in-cheek anti-gun song. So,
and then then they played Jeremy, and once again, just one of the most caustic songs in all of Pearl Jam's catalog. And everyone's just doing their falsetto along in the stadium, and it was almost like a party song, which is again so weird, but it was awesome. And then because Ed's daughter Olivia was on hand, they played something special. By the way, she sang My Father's Daughter both nights with Glenn Hansard and his band.
So cool.
And so Ed's daughter sang this song, I think, as part of a movie soundtrack. Flag Day. Is it Flag Day?
I don't know. That sounds right to me, but I know she did it as part of that of a soundtrack. And
Ed and Glenn also had a really phenomenal song that they did together on that soundtrack as well. They never played that one. Glenn Hansard did great as an opener. He's just awesome. And so, yeah, she was on hand. So they played something special on night 1. They did not play it on night 2. Spoiler alert. And then they finished their main set with Rearviewmirror, which just I remember as they finished that and they go to the encore break. I was sitting there with my friend and we are like, okay, we're going through the list of songs that we'd already heard, and we're like, all right, what are they even going to play in the encore? I mean, there's plenty of things to choose from, but obviously Alive hadn't been played yet, but Rearviewmirror, Corduroy, Even Flow are all off the table. Given to Fly, off the table. There's so many songs that were just off the table from that killer first set.
Yeah. And like it was, your night 1 set list was definitely heavy on a lot of like, well, some not like super, a couple pretty rare songs. Glorified G does not get played a ton. That one was pretty rare. But you also even had like what I call like the pseudo rare songs, like In My Tree is not something that gets played a ton. Down does not get played a ton.
Right.
Even Footsteps doesn't get played all that often. Like there was a really nice mix. And then, even we haven't gotten to it yet, but like State of Love and Trust is not a song that actually gets played all that much.
Let me just list the encore and then we'll finish our conversation about night 1.
Sure.
So he opens the encore with Just Breathe. He plays Song of Good Hope with Glenn Hansard, which is a Glenn Hansard song. Then, for almost no apparent reason, they decided to honor a request and they played Blood, which I don't think they ever... It says here that it's the first time they've played it since 2018.
Yeah, very, very rare to hear that these days.
Then Better Man, into Setting Sun, into State of Love and Trust, and they finished the night with Alive.
Rockin'. Alive, Rockin' in the Free World, in Yellow Ledbetter.
My browser took a crap here. So
after State of Love and Trust was Alive, Rockin' in the Free World, Yellow Ledbetter.
Okay. Yeah. And then McCready played the Star Spangled Banner.
Yeah.
Which was, absolutely awesome. McCready was on fire. I wouldn't say it was a McCready heavy show. The band was very balanced all night. But I can't wait to talk about night 2 and who had the heavy night on night 2. But so that was night 1. And I didn't really feel between having the better seats on night 1 and that set list. I certainly didn't think they could top it on night 2.
And the narrator, they topped it on night 2.
I don't know, not for me, maybe.
Okay.
But
we'll talk. We'll get to that. But yeah, I think the night 1 set list was, it was ridiculous. Really good. And I like getting to see even like Blood was certainly really cool. And like State of Love and Trust somehow is like an underrated Pearl Jam song. Like
let me give a hot take. Let me give a hot take about Blood. So Blood is like a rare Pokemon card or something. So like I collected it, but as far as Pearl Jam songs I want to hear live, like, all right, I'm going to hear Ed leave his vocal cords on the stage for no apparent reason. Like, it's not one of my favorite Pearl Jam songs. I'd rather hear Animal. I'd rather hear any number of songs from Versus over that one. But it's a rarity, and I got to hear it. So now it's in my collector card bin.
Yeah, like it actually is one of my favorite songs on Versus.
Does that make sense, though, what I'm saying?
But no, it totally does. However, like what I was going to say is it did not used to be a rare song. Like, you go back to the 90s, Blood was in tons of their sets, and it was always one of my favorite songs live. Like, they played it the first time I ever saw them in 96 in Toledo. They played it. It's one of the standout songs for me. When they were young and angry, like Blood just killed live. It was like the most important song in the world to me. Like it carried that much weight. And it's funny because as they're like now in their 60s, the song Blood, again, we talk about songs changing their meaning. Like, it's hard to have the visceral anger that you need to talk about what, particularly from Ed's perspective, when he's talking in Blood, the song is entirely about, his relationship to the media and the way he felt like he was being sucked dry by the media, being used for whatever different storylines. And it was just this, like, talking about that turmoil that doesn't exist today. Ed is clearly very comfortable with his status where he's at as a rock star or rock icon today. And so that song just can't carry that same weight, but also just being older, you can't give that song its vitality the way maybe perhaps that it deserves. So it totally makes sense that, like,
do you want to know why they played it? This is great.
Sure.
They played it because there's a super fan in the audience with a sign who happened to be a hematologist.
Oh, okay. He has really good stories for his requests that he takes on this tour, by the way. If you listen to the bootlegs, like, almost every request they do has like a good story behind it. So
I don't even know if that's real, but it's a good story. He said it.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, we were on absolute cloud nine. We were just over a mile away from Fenway at our hotel, and with surge pricing and the train stations and everything else, we walked it and we had zero complaints about it. It was perfect, just perfect.
Yeah, that's great.
So that was night one.